We are here with new interesting episode. Dan Gilbert, a professor at Harvard and the author of Stumbling on Happiness, has found that people spend almost half of their day, around 46.9% of the time, operating on autopilot. This means that for nearly half of every day, people are not fully present in what they are doing but are instead running on automatic mental processes. The brain operates in two distinct modes, the default mode and the direct mode. The default mode is when the mind drifts without conscious control. It is when people go through their daily routines without being fully aware of their actions, thoughts, or decisions. This is similar to how a person can drive to a familiar destination and not remember much about the journey because their mind was elsewhere. The direct mode, in contrast, is when a person is fully present and in control of their thoughts. In this mode, a person is actively engaged with their surroundings, focusing on the present moment, and making conscious decisions about their actions. The difference between these two modes is crucial because it determines how much control a person has over their life. If someone spends most of their time in the default mode, they are simply repeating habits and patterns without questioning them. However, if they engage the direct mode, they can take control of their thoughts and make intentional choices about how they think and behave. Every day, there is a choice to be made between continuing to repeat old patterns or making a conscious effort to change and grow. The ability to think deliberately and direct one's thoughts is a skill that can be learned and mastered. It is not something that happens overnight, but rather something that requires consistent effort and practice. Resetting one's mindset is not a single event but an ongoing process. The negative and limiting beliefs that people hold are often deeply ingrained in the brain's default mode network. These beliefs have been reinforced over time and have become automatic, making them difficult to change. Because of this, shifting one's thinking requires intentional repetition and commitment. Many people want to make changes in their lives, but when they start thinking about those changes, their minds immediately begin to focus on everything that could go wrong. They start to worry, doubt themselves, and assume that failure is inevitable. This kind of thinking is extremely common. The reason it happens is that, at some point in life, either someone taught them to think this way, or they have gone through so many negative experiences that they have trained themselves to expect bad outcomes. It is true that bad things will happen in life. Difficulties, challenges, and setbacks are unavoidable. However, if a person's default response is to assume the worst, constantly think negatively about themselves, and believe they are unworthy or incapable, then those negative thoughts become the norm. Scientists refer to this automatic way of thinking as the default mode network. This network consists of a series of neurons in the brain that create patterns of automatic thinking and behavior. The reason this network exists is to make everyday life easier. People perform many tasks every day that should not require much conscious thought, such as walking, brushing their teeth, or tying their shoes. The brain automates these tasks to conserve mental energy. However, the problem is that the same system that automates helpful behaviors also reinforces unhelpful thinking patterns. If someone has spent years thinking negatively about themselves, believing that they are a failure, that they are not good enough, or that they are not capable of success, then those negative beliefs become part of their default mode network. They do not have to think about these beliefs actively, they arise automatically. The good news is that just as a person can train themselves to write with their non-dominant hand, they can also train their brain to adopt a more positive and intentional way of thinking. Changing ingrained thought patterns is a process, not an instant transformation. In the beginning, shifting from automatic negative thinking to deliberate positive thinking will feel unnatural and difficult. It may feel awkward and uncomfortable, just as writing with the other hand would feel clumsy at first. The initial attempts may not seem effective, and the old thought patterns may persist. However, just as with any new skill, the more a person practices, the easier it becomes. Over time, with consistent effort, deliberate thinking can replace the default negative mode. A person can train themselves to stop assuming the worst and start choosing thoughts that are more constructive, supportive, and filled with possibility. The more they actively direct their thoughts toward positive beliefs and optimistic perspectives, the more natural it will become. The key is to keep practicing, making a conscious effort each day to shift from autopilot thinking to intentional, empowered thinking. Eventually, what once felt unnatural will become second nature, and a more positive mindset will become the new default. Changing the patterns in your mind is the key to transforming your life. There is no shortcut, no magic solution. It requires conscious effort and practice. Just as you could train yourself to switch from writing with your dominant hand to using your non-dominant hand, you can also train yourself to shift from operating on autopilot to becoming a more intentional thinker. The default mode, or autopilot, can be useful in some situations, but when it reinforces negative thinking patterns, it becomes a major obstacle. The way you think can either hold you back or propel you forward. If you can change your thought patterns, you can change your entire life. Thinking is a choice. You will either continue repeating the same thought patterns you've always had or make a conscious effort to evolve and improve them. Every year, every day, every moment presents an opportunity to break free from the thoughts that have been limiting you. Learning to think deliberately is one of the most powerful skills you can develop. Instead of letting old, negative thought patterns control you, you can start choosing thoughts that support your growth and success. One of the biggest barriers to growth is limiting beliefs. These are the negative thoughts you have about yourself, beliefs that hold you back and make you doubt your abilities. Maybe these beliefs came from your upbringing, something a parent or authority figure told you when you were younger. Perhaps they stem from a painful breakup that left you feeling unworthy or from a series of failures that convinced you that you weren't capable of success. Whatever the source, these limiting beliefs become ingrained in your mind, operating in the background and shaping your reality. Identifying your limiting belief is the first step in changing it. What is the thought that keeps you stuck? Some common ones include, I'm not good enough, my mental health holds me back, I can't run a successful business, I'm too lazy to accomplish anything, I'm not healthy enough, money is always an issue, or I'm afraid of failure. Once you identify your limiting belief, it's time to examine the cost of holding on to it. To do this, ask yourself 3 important questions. First, what has this belief cost you in the past? Think about opportunities you've missed, experiences you avoided, or dreams you let go of because you believed this negative thought about yourself. Second, what is it costing you right now? Consider how it is affecting your daily life, your confidence, and your actions. Third, what will it cost you in the future if you don't change it? Imagine where you will be years from now if you continue to let this belief control you. Will you still be stuck? Will you regret not changing your mindset sooner? You cannot get rid of a negative default way of thinking until you recognize it. Once you see it clearly, you take back control. From this moment forward, your job is to catch yourself whenever your default negative thoughts creep in. Every time your mind tells you that you're too old, not smart enough, not capable, or not worthy, you must interrupt that thought. This is the moment when you do a mindset reset. That voice in your head that tells you negative things isn't the voice of truth. It isn't some higher power telling you what your reality is. It's just old programming, thoughts that have been running on autopilot for years. You do not have to continue living with these thoughts. You do not have to accept a future filled with self-doubt and negativity. The way to reprogram your mind is to first catch the negative thought and then replace it with a deliberate, positive one. When your default thought is, no one likes me, replace it with, the right people love and appreciate me. If your mind tells you, I'm too old, shift your thinking to, I have plenty of time, or I have so much experience that I am sure to succeed. If you believe, I'm too young, turn it into, I have time to learn everything I need to know, or being young is an advantage because I have so much potential ahead of me. The goal is to stop allowing negativity to run on autopilot in your mind. Every time a negative thought appears, catch it and deliberately replace it with something positive. The more you do this, the more your brain will adapt, and over time, your default thoughts will shift. Instead of being filled with fear, doubt, or self-criticism, your new default will be confidence, courage, and self-belief. It won't happen overnight, but with practice, it will become your new reality. Thanks for watching. Keep it and stay tuned.